Hey, Sarah.
Yes, Alex?
How do you feel when I'm struggling in like another relationship?
Oh, I love it.
What? Why?
Because then I'm not the only one crying in the bathtub.
That was just the one time, okay, and it was the shower.
Welcome to Mistakes Were Made. It's a podcast about non-monogamy for messy people like us. I'm Sarah. I'm a queer therapist, parent, writer, and activist.
And I'm her co-host, Alex. I'm not a therapist, but I have dated a lot of therapists, and I'm married to one.
And I'm Jessica, here producing, and here to remind you guys that we have something to talk about before we dive into the episode, which is a very exciting workshop coming up in March on the 21st.
Yeah, it's happening. And I have a special shout out to a demographic of potential attendees.
Targeted recruitment?
This is targeted recruitment for the small handful of people on the dating apps who have asked me for relationship advice, but then not asked me out. Ooh. This workshop's for you. It's clear we're not going to have a romantic relationship, so follow Mistakes Were Made on Instagram. Go to the link in our bio. Sign up. There's an early bird special, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, until January 31st.
Early bird special makes it sound like a breakfast for seniors. Which is great.
That's great.
Yeah, we kind of had that yesterday, actually. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we'll give you a special, if you identify yourself as one of the people who asked for relationship advice and then didn't ask me out, we'll give you an additional $5 discount.
Wow.
Ooh. Yeah.
Like
you know who you are.
Message Sarah on the apps for a promo code.
So what we're talking about is our intentional non-monogamy workshop in March that is going to be like a pretty small group, kind of all-day seminar, getting a bunch of people together to give some like of the basics for people first entering into non-monogamous relationships or thinking about it. It could be couples, could be singles. Yeah, just kind of responding to some of the like advice that we get asked for a lot. Usually not on dating apps or on dates, but
yeah. And if you listen to this podcast regularly, you kind of know the quick version of our story, which is that we essentially heard that non-monogamy existed, and then the next week we're on the dating apps and doing it, which is one way of opening up a marriage and going from being monogamous to non-monogamous. And it's not the way that I would recommend. And in, retrospect, I really wish that we had known about a resource like this, because there are things that you can do and like foundations that you can lay to ensure that you have, I think, a more exciting, satisfying, thoughtful,
less devastating,
and
mistake-ridden
entry into non-monogamy. And yeah, so hopefully you don't have to have 5 seasons of material of mistakes that you made.
So yeah, that early bird sign up ends at the end of the month.
One more week.
One more week. Okay, yeah. Let's project into our future selves. In just one more week, the early bird will close.
1 week left.
So we hope to have some of you beautiful, wonderful listeners there with us in person in Seattle. We should say this is in Seattle. So unless you want to fly to Seattle, it's probably mostly for people who live in Seattle or the surrounding environs. So today we're talking about how to take care of your partner when they're struggling, and maybe particularly when they're struggling in another relationship. So this is something that's like sort of unique to polyamory, I think, or non-monogamy, because obviously otherwise those struggles would not be in another romantic relationship. And like, of course, helping your partner when they're having a conflict with a coworker or with their boss or with a family member or with a friend, like those things can all be very complicated, and they're sort of like pretty good like baseline techniques and advice for how to approach that. But when it's another romantic partner, some of that stuff is going to go out the window, and it's maybe going to be a little bit or a lot harder for you to provide that kind of support. But that's ideally what we want to be doing as good partners. And So yeah, that's what we want to dig into today. And I guess it's coming from a place of some recent experience. That's why we thought of doing this episode. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit up top.
Yeah. Should I offer the summary of
Yeah.
heartbreak? The heartbreak
Yeah,
summary?
summarize your... Yeah, I feel like regular listeners will have some of a sense of this recent background, but let's dig into it again one more time for old time's sake.
Okay, well, I'll start and then talk a little bit about what mine was like. We can talk a little bit what yours was like.
And then
Over
later we can talk about how we supported each other
perfectly
perfectly.
and made no mistakes.
Never had a fight about it.
Nope.
No,
No hard
we
feelings.
did pretty good.
Incredible.
Yeah, over the course of kind of the past year-ish, I've gone through a really tough breakup in my chosen family. And then in the past 6 months, I went through a romantic breakup. So it was a tough season for breakups for me, for sure. Both of them, made an impact on me, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would add maybe that like those were both like pretty long, protracted processes. Like, in both cases, like it's not like it just happened one day, but it was like there was a lot of, several months of like kind of struggle, which is just to
Yeah,
say.
Jessica, weigh in here.
Well, I mean, I guess I just was going to like.
Depends on who you ask.
Well, no, aren't they always, if it's like an impactful breakup, it's long.
Yeah,
Like-
no, my point was just, I guess when I was thinking about like a breakup that I struggled with a lot, like a couple years ago, it like kind of came out of nowhere. It's not to say that like your struggles with the breakup itself lasted a long time, but just like, just to say like in relationships in general, even if they're not, it's not like a point of like, I'm going through a breakup, like it can still be like, there can be ongoing turmoil. And so I was just saying like,
Yeah, there was
a
some
long
some
period of
turmoil then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was an on-ramp of turmoil and then like what would be
And the turmoil, and then
And
the
then-
offering.
yes, and then a tail of turmoil.
Yeah. Yeah. The post-turmoil period.
Post-turmoil period.
I've
yes.
enjoyed the post-turmoil period personally. Yeah, and for me, I had there was the breakup I just referenced. It was a couple years ago, and kind of like another one this summer, and just like I had like a lot of struggles with anxiety and mental health this last summer. Some of it was directed at a relationship, around a relationship, and made some mistakes in overextending myself in some realms, like sex parties. And so, yeah, there was a lot of opportunities for you to help me with those struggles. At times with things that you probably had warned me were a bad idea in the first place, and I didn't listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
So a special flavor of post-turmoil support.
I mean, that's classic, though.
Yeah.
Isn't that, from best friend to polyamorous partner, you can see the mistakes the other person is making from a mile away. And there's not a damn thing you could do to stop them. You can, gently suggest it. You could pretend that it was their idea that it might be a mistake. You could, get a neon sign.
I'm
You
I'm
could-
taking notes on all your secret techniques.
Write anonymous letters. It doesn't matter. People,
I think
and I say this from a therapist's perspective too. When it comes to matters of love and sex, and I'm joking because this is funny and very human and annoying and very human. But we sure like to choose our learning when it comes to love and sex. And if we've decided that we're going to learn this way, we're going to learn this way. And no one's going to talk us out of it.
Yeah.
This may be a specific personality flaw of mine, but somebody telling me not to do something really just makes me want to do it a lot more. And I think you know that, so you don't really tell me not to very often.
No, I don't.
And then I'm later like, why did you tell me not to do that?
Yes, you do. And then many, many years later, you're like, I think maybe you did warn me. And I'm like, what did I? I can't. I don't even.
I don't remember. I definitely don't
anymore.
have a recording of that conversation. So So speaking of recordings of things, we'll talk about in a minute about how it felt to provide the support in that context, and that's something we want to come back to after we talk about it writ large. But I was like, coming into this episode, I was like, what is the sort of like dialogue about this, or how do people think about this? And I had this probably not that brilliant idea. Usually I just Google it and then read some articles, but there weren't really a lot of articles about it. There were some articles about supporting partners through breakup specifically, like 2 or 3. But that was kind of it. And this is like a big topic. So I was like, I wonder what AI will say. So I asked AI, this is not something I do often, but here we are. And at first it just was very mononormative. And I said, how do I support my romantic partner when they're having a conflict in another relationship? And Gemini was like, clearly you're talking about a friend, a family member, or a coworker, because you are obviously monogamous. That was sort of the assumption. So then I drilled down and said no, but the conflict is with another romantic partner. And here's what we
This adds a layer of complexity because it involves polyamory or non-monogamy, which requires a specific kind of emotional hygiene. When your partner is hurting because of another romantic interest, your role shifts from teammate to compassionate observer. The goal is to support your partner without letting the hinge, the partner they are fighting with, destabilize your own relationship. 1. The kitchen...
Okay, I'm going to stop right there because already it fucked up. Like, what? That's not the hinge, right?
No, I don't think so.
If you're fighting with your partner and I'm talking to you about that, then you're the hinge. The partner they're fighting with is not the hinge.
Yeah, and I mean, even then, it's a metaphor. A hinge would imply that there's a... Well, no, I guess you would be the hinge, yeah.
Yeah, right. You'd be the hinge and they'd be the metaphor. So anyway, AI still needs to get its shit together a little bit.
Before it takes over our lives. And
I mean, it
brains.
You feed it a little more non-monogamy content and it will start making this podcast.
That's true. I mean, it already could probably, but clearly it would be nonsense. So
I also cry in the bathtub.
I dream of having emotions so that I can suffer as you do. There was some like good kind of generalized stuff that it said.
What did you like?
So it said to, ask your partner what they need in this kind of conversation. So we're presuming conversation where like your partner is talking about a struggle they're having with another partner. So like clarifying, like, what do you need from me in this conversation? Do you want me to just listen? Do you want my advice? Things like that.
Can I pop in here and ask a question about that? Mm-hmm. I have heard recently a lot of people get like kind of get the ick when you ask that, or when you're like clarify what you're looking for in a conversation, where you're like, what do you need, right? Or this is what I need. This is one of the, I think it's a tenet of nonviolent communication too, is just this idea that you like indicate how you're going to be like listening to someone and what responses you're going to be giving. And people will be really turned off by it seeming mechanical or intentional or like unorganic. I was just curious what you all think about that. I don't feel that way, but I have received that feedback at times.
I've historically struggled when I was asked to kind of provide something extremely specific. And I think I've like moved through that a little bit. But like sometimes you've told me like, I just really need you to tell me blah, blah, blah. And, in my younger, more immature self was like, well, it's going to be disingenuous if you just told me what to say. So even if I agree with that, I can't possibly bring my sarcastic Seattle ass self to to do that. But I don't know. That's not a problem with being, like asking what a person needs. I think it's a good thing to do. What do you think, Jess?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a good thing to do. I think like sometimes if I'm having a conversation like this, I might not know what I need. And so then it feels like, I'm trying to be vulnerable and share a problem and get help processing it, but I don't even know.
Right.
It's like what I need is to talk about it.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I think maybe that was what I was sensing underneath it. I am all for asking for what you need or asking someone what they need. But what if you're in a situation where like people don't know what that is?
Mhm.
Then what do you do? So I think just what you're describing, you just want to be actively listening at
Mhm.
first, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
listening and just asking clarifying questions, validating feelings, right?
Yeah, and I'm realizing that maybe what this is actually saying is it's encouraging the listener not to jump right into solutions.
Mm.
Mhm.
And so maybe
Right.
the question earlier on in the kind of general prompt they referred to, like the golden question: what do you need? Do you need to vent, or are you looking to find solutions?
Mm.
I think in most cases, people are not looking to find solutions.
No, I don't think so. Unless if people are looking to find solutions, they will be like, "What do you think I should do?"
Right. Yeah.
If people are not
Exactly.
saying that, it is safe to assume they don't want to fucking hear what you think they should do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess saying what you think somebody should do or like giving out that advice right away does give the impression that you don't really want to hear them talk about that. The
Exactly.
problem, you just want it to be solved. So you're like, why didn't you tell them to go fuck themselves?
Thank you.
Conversation over.
So
Mhm,
that's, I
mhm.
really appreciate you saying that because there is all of this emotional subtext that's happening in a situation like this. And when people jump to solutions, what I often hear is, this is tiring. I don't want my time or your time wasted on it. Why don't we get to the bottom of how to make it go away? I find it uncomfortable. Your feelings are uncomfortable to me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's where sometimes if you're the person struggling, saying, I just need to vent, it's like, I feel like that comes up a lot. Like, I just need to vent about this thing.
I think that you can nuance venting just a little bit more and get into the act of listening. Like you can be a place where people can just talk through how they're feeling and saying things like, that makes a lot of sense. Or if what they're saying you're not quite sure if you understand, asking a clarifying question is it's attunement. It shows that you're actually paying attention, that you're present, and that you care. And I don't think that it requires a ton of emotional labor or content on your side. You know,
Mhm.
No, unless, and we'll come back to this, unless it's activating to you because of the way
Exactly,
that you're
yeah.
implicated.
Right.
So,
but if we're just in step one, I'm already fighting for my job with AI. Can you tell? That's what's happening here.
yeah.
I'm like, for all of you out there
Sorry.
who think you're getting therapy from AI,
I
no.
just feel like AI would be like, I am asking a clarifying question. And that would be it. Okay, so a second piece of advice that came up there, validate the feeling, but don't indict the person.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think this is good advice when it comes to, especially like giving advice to a partner about a metamor. There's this sort of classic thing. This comes up with friends too, like when somebody's complaining about their boyfriend or girlfriend or
Mm-hmm.
romantic partner, and then you're like, "Yeah, fuck that guy. I've always
Never
hated
liked him.
No.
Nobody does. We talk about it all the time.
Mhm.
And then 3 days later, you're back together and everything's fine, and you've kind of poisoned the well or whatever. So, yeah, obviously that's good advice.
Can I go back to the solutions piece?
Uh-huh.
I would like to put a challenge out there to all of us, the three of us at this table, and anyone listening to this podcast. We all do this more than we think we do.
Mm.
I
Provide the solutions.
Jump to
Mhm.
solutions.
Jump to
Yeah.
solutions.
Mhm.
Where all of us are sitting here thinking like, oh man, it's so annoying when people do that to me. And we can think of like 5 examples. And you know why you can think of that? It's because you are also doing it.
Yeah.
Everybody is doing it. And I find this like something I'm maybe particularly sensitive to because I have to be really careful not to do it as a clinician.
Mhm.
So, and like I can feel the temptation rising up in me and then I have to remind myself not to do that. And, so
Yeah. It must be a strong temptation because in your position as a therapist, it's like if you were just dispensing solutions and that was going to work, then your job would be over.
and there's all these tricky ways that I will still try and do it or other people do it. They're like, what if you tried blocking his ass?
How would it feel?
How would it feel if you never fucking spoke to him again?
Yeah. Oh my God. So you're saying we're doing that a lot.
We're doing
regardless.
it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to be careful because I do think sometimes it's because we are uncomfortable with people's uncomfortable feelings.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's not coming from a place of care. And
Yeah.
that we're picking that up in our nervous systems, whether or not we know it.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
this is resonating for me in, various different realms of like sort of supporting you or failing to support you in the past, when there would be times when I would get mad on your behalf. Like something happens and I'm just like, and it's usually when I'm sort of getting impatient about the problem itself, and like it's not maybe exactly the same as offering a solution, but I'm just like, yeah, I'm so fucking pissed too. I can't believe they fucking did that. And like think about, sometimes it's like in realms where I'm implicated as well. So like maybe I have a little bit of a right to be mad about it, but what I'm really mad about is that like it's creating problems for you.
Do you think if you were being really honest with yourself, you're really mad about it because it's creating problems for me, or you're really mad about it because the problems that I'm experiencing are creating problems for you?
Definitely some of the second one. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yes.
I think that's what we
Yes.
need to check ourselves
Yeah.
for. And it doesn't mean you have to be perfect in that realm, but I think having a little bit of self-awareness can be helpful, because that also indicates that you might be past capacity.
Right. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And so if you find yourself like really wanting to solve this problem, taking a beat and asking yourself, is that because like they're suffering? I want to alleviate their suffering because I'm communicating care, or is it because I am uncomfortable and past how much I can care about this, and
Right.
so I want it to stop?
Well, and this gets harder the closer your relationship is too, because like, if I go out with a friend and they tell me about, some terrible experiencing that they're having, at some point that coffee date ends. And, so I'm like, I can provide the support during this time. I don't need the problem to be resolved necessarily. Like I have set the time and space that I'm going to have this conversation with this person, and then I'm going to go on with my life and they're going to go on with theirs. But when it's like your live-in, primary partner, then it's like, I think it's easier to get into that like impatient solutions space, because, it is selfish to be like, I want Sarah to stop being sad or upset. It's kind of both selfish and can be empathetic, and like I'm not really sure.
Well,
when
and
one
there's
stops
like,
and the other starts.
we got to make the lunches.
Yeah.
We got to get up at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
There have to be some boundaries around this.
Can we
too.
talk about this while you fold that pile of laundry on the table? Which, by the way, bonus content coming to the Instagram if you want it. The most insane pile of laundry on.
We are
couch
airing
right now.
our unfolded laundry.
Oh.
Clean laundry.
And there's a cat in it.
Oh.
Yeah. We need we don't have like subscriber bonus content. Otherwise we could
Maybe
share
this
it
is
with them.
the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Send me $1 and I'll text you a picture of our laundry.
everybody just floods us with solutions for how to get your laundry
Yeah.
folded
You know
on
what?
time.
I'm actually open
I'm
to
asking for
solutions.
solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
AI.
that's something that we could really use AI for. Like, can they fold all this laundry?
Jesus Christ, yeah.
I'm gonna, after this, ask AI how to help me deal with this. It's gonna be great. They're gonna give me some fucking solutions. I'm gonna be pissed.
So validate the
Yeah.
feeling, don't indict the person. This can be challenging, especially when like sometimes the other person's behavior really sucks. And, you're not going to be able to pretend like you don't notice that.
Yeah. And you might have a sense that you're in competition with that person somewhat. I mean, obviously not our very best compersive poly selves would never do that, but we're not always those selves. So if you're hearing like, this other person is, if I'm hearing this other person is like hurting you or doing something that's like making you distressed, it's pretty like often pretty readily available to be like mad at them.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I think so. Yeah.
Like you have the relationship with them, I don't, but then it really brings, I think, in like a sort of poly hinge situation, to use the term correctly, like we're really close. Like we're really close to our metas through the hinge partner, but we don't have necessarily have a direct personal like relationship or rapport or like care. So I think that's where this starts to get really hard.
Yeah.
Because it's like all the feelings are maybe kind of flowing through you to me, for example. But
also like the way that you knew I was going to talk about this, because attachment trauma, it's my muse. But it depends on where your attachment wounding sort of is located too, because actually for me, people getting a lot of attention for misbehaving activates my attachment wounding.
give an example of that.
So, for example, if you are really preoccupied with partner who is misbehaving in some way,
Mm-hmm.
acting out, making bad decisions, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
This makes me feel devalued because by contrast, it feels like I am working hard to behave well and be a good partner, but I'm not getting any of your attention.
Mm.
I'm not getting any of your
Yeah.
emotionality or concern, and that my goodness is just sort of taken for granted.
How do you think that relates to attachment?
Well, because I think that in my family of origin, that feeling that if you misbehaved, you were going to get more attention than if you didn't was kind of a dynamic.
Uh-huh.
Um, but also, I think maybe underneath that, there is a sense that I was always kind of trying to prove that I'm really good and deserving of care and emotional connection and love, and trying to figure out how do you be good enough to actually get it?
Mm-hmm.
And then it wouldn't feel like it worked. And then I would act out, or someone in my family would act out, and the whole system would just gravitate
Mm-hmm.
towards that
Mm-hmm.
behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And so it reinforced this idea that there's this impossible standard to meet of goodness where you're going to get back the attachment and care that you need. But being a shit and being dysregulated and acting wild will get you some of it.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
interesting. Because I think coming from not super dissimilar circumstance, or maybe they are, I don't know, but for me, I think I've turned that more into that I just like the feeling that I'm the good one.
I
And
know.
so if somebody else is misbehaving or causing trouble, you know, I just generally have more of a feeling of calm and peace because I'm well, I can just be over here being
Yeah.
easy and
I'm just saying it's
Mm-hmm.
a little complicated. I have that feeling too. I mean, I can be insecure in literally every direction at once. So I don't feel like I have to choose.
yeah.
But I can, can definitely relate to that.
I'm not arguing with your feeling, to be clear. I'm just saying it's interesting that you can kind of it can land in different, the same thing can kind of land in
In
different.
past relationships that I've had outside of our marriage, it's been really
Wait, what?
it's been not uncommon that those people were in relationships with people who had a lot of emotional dysregulation and a lot of health problems or a lot of mental health problems.
Mm.
And I was kind of presented as the opposite, self-reliant and emotionally regulated and,
Yeah.
that. But in my perception, so this is just me trying to explore the attachment wounding here. In my perception, the person who was experiencing that dysregulation or struggling was the person who, at a moment's phone call or text got soup and chocolate and company on the couch, or who got taken to a doctor's appointment, or who got, picked up from work, or who got whatever, some sort of service oriented type of care.
Yeah.
Where I was just being told that they appreciated that I was never any trouble.
Right.
I'm realizing there's some gendered elements here too that typically, I mean, you've had metas who were men, but for the most part, they've been women. I've almost exclusively, well, no, same, I guess. But when I imagine a meta who's a man causing emotional distress for my primary partner, or for my partner who's a woman, uh, it's a pretty comfortable space for me to be in, that to be kind of yeah, he's a bad man. He's very bad.
Not a good
and
man
I
like
am
you.
a good man.
Yeah.
Mm.
There may be also a gendered element here of men's care is scarce.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
Yeah.
going to say it's treated like it's scarcity. I would say it is scarce. As a general rule, men are not spending a lot of time emotionally and materially, tangibly caring for women.
That's how you keep him wanting more.
Oh boy.
And I'm going to let that go. And so I think it often puts women in this state of scarcity.
Mhm.
How will I get, we are not receiving the kind of care that we want from men. And, without other women that they're showing that care to, how do we get it? How do we behave that we get it? Should we ask for it? But then they say that it's not authentic. Should we not ask for it? But then they forget about us. Should we be well behaved? But then we're not the squeaky wheel. But if we're the squeaky wheel, then we're a crazy bitch. Like there's this way that there's no way you can be where it feels like you can safely assume that a man will want to care for you and not treat it like it's a chore or a reward or something that will be revoked at a moment's notice.
Yeah. You're making me think about this person I follow on Instagram who recently got in trouble with the poly community for being like, it's fine for women to have as many boyfriends as they want, but I don't know any men who can handle more, let alone one relationship, much less many. And
I mean, I think
there's
that
some kernels of truth there, perhaps.
there
but of
is
course
just
I was like,
something
that's
to
not me.
identify about how men are socialized in regards to emotionally and physically caring for women. And it's not something that most men have been socialized to do as a standard of like their value.
Yeah. Here's what I think you should do about that, Sarah. Move on to the next point.
I can just hear my friend Madeline saying, well, Sarah, have you considered just dating women?
Oh, yeah.
Which is basically what Madeline says to me every time I complain about any relationship that I have with a man. And I'm like, you're trying to solve my problem. And then she's like, yes, but it would work.
My solution is to set boundaries so you can still get what you need out of the relationship without. Oh no, this is advice for dealing with a minute. The other last piece of advice is
From AI.
Yeah.
Yes.
To know how much capacity you have, like you were saying, and like set various kinds of boundaries for how much support that you can provide to your partner around their struggles in another relationship. So sometimes that's like putting a container around like the kind of like length of the conversation or the timing of it, or maybe just noticing when you get beyond capacity.
How do you know?
I guess because I was just going to ask the same thing. I guess because like you get mad or, frustrated and you're no longer listening to them or like helping. And instead you're like thinking about yourself. I mean, for me, if I was really honest with myself, it would be like, when have I gotten like sort of activated in some way? And like sometimes that can be like the more like high key adrenaline activation or like anger activation, but sometimes it can, I think, just be like sort of like a like boredom feeling or a like withdrawal feeling. So I guess noticing just like I'm not really able to be present in this conversation. It's pretty hard to like name that though. I mean, imagine like you're pouring your heart out about your breakup and I'm like
On your phone.
Sure.
I'm sure
Are you
that's
referencing
never
something
ever
specific?
happened.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah. Oh, that sucks. Sounds like you should break up with him.
This lady's hot, right?
Yeah. Do you want to have a threesome with this lady? Anyway.
I was just going to say, I think it can be hard to know when you're at capacity. And again, there may be a gendered element, there may be a therapist element. But I almost never, let me think about this. Okay, no, that's not true. My tell in a relationship is when I start getting jealous of the attention that is being
like you just said.
expressed. Yes, that's the thing. That's the tell I have
Yeah.
to be aware of. I'm never going to get bored. That's the problem. I have an endless appetite for people's fucking tea.
Yeah.
Obviously. But and I'm always endlessly kind of interested in the emotional mechanics of people I care about. So it's easy for me to kind of stay in longer than I probably should. But I think my tell is that jealousy when I'm just like, why are we still talking about this person? I am literally right here. Like that starts coming up.
Yeah.
Or the other one is, oh, maybe another tell is when I'm like, when is it going to be my turn to be cared for?
Right.
Yeah. And the problem is when your partner is in distress, it might be 4 months from now. It might not be that afternoon. And so that might also be a sign that you're at or beyond capacity.
Well, and it's like when you're really struggling, like if in my like memory of like times when I was like really struggling, the idea that you would sort of like be like, okay, well that struggle, I need to put that struggle aside and just like enjoy our time together in this relationship. Like you can try to do that, but if you're like activated or anxious or whatever, like you're not gonna be able to do that.
And that gets to this other point, which is if we can move away from AI's advice
Yep,
for a moment.
that's all there. I did want to say one more thing about it, which was just like what I noticed in general in its advice about everything is that it's very individualist. I'm asking it the question, and it's talking to me about how I can take care of myself. And with this question, like part of the question is like, how do I take care of but the question was literally, how do I support my partner? And all of its answers were more about like, how do you support yourself?
That's interesting. Yeah, what's coming up for you, Jessica? I saw a look pass over your face.
I was just going to say rude. That's so
Well,
rude.
it's rude, and it's like a good reminder that AI is like just built off of a data set, and the data set, I think, for Gemini is like basically the whole internet. So like that's the way we talk about these things. The mononormativity obviously comes from there as well, from it just kind of averaging out everything. That's how things are talked about, but it seems like an indicator of a broader social problem.
Yes, and I'm not, far be it for me to argue on behalf of Gemini or individualism, but I think this maybe speaks to the next point that I wanted to make, which is, I am a systems thinker. I think the three of us all are. And we know when we think in systems that any change to any component of the system changes the whole system. So I wanted to identify that these are not compartmentalized problems that are not going to impact you. And just like you described, Alex, if you're going through a lot of emotional distress over the period of many, many months, that is going to impact our relationship and me. It's going to impact the quality of our time together. It's going to impact like how much care I feel like I'm receiving, how much care you feel like you can receive back from me. It's going to, it absolutely does impact everyone in the system. And so I think that's one of the challenges in polyamory that we don't talk about enough, because there's a lot of, was it Gemini who said something about emotional hygiene?
Yeah.
Fucking love that term.
Yeah.
When I finally take a sabbatical and write a dystopian novel, I am definitely including the term emotional hygiene in it.
And it's like the inside of your brain's going to get pressure washed
Yes.
by the robots or whatever. Yeah.
But I think we talk about like, you have to make sure that there's all these proper boundaries in place, and that's their relationship and not your relationship.
Yeah.
And,
Compartmentalization.
Yeah. But there's more nuance than that.
Uh-huh.
Yes, it's not my business to get overly involved in what happens in you and my metamor's relationship, but it's also not fair to act as though it were possible for me not to be impacted by that, and that not just like tangibly and logistically, maybe there's like more time being spent together, or there's late night frantic phone calls or whatever.
Yes.
But
like I just need to have this text conversation right now because it feels so like crucial, and if I leave it. Yeah.
But it also leaves me in a very different emotional state inside our relationship, and sometimes for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So that idea that you need to take care of yourself, I think, is actually good advice.
Right.
And you might notice that around this time, I started all kinds of new self-care routines.
Yeah. Around the time that I was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the times were overlapping. So I guess
They were,
I interpreted that as just taking care of yourself for that reason.
But like in that feeling, you were going through that, so I wasn't receiving as much care or attention from you. I had broken up with someone I wasn't receiving any care or attention from. Yeah. I had a breakup from this friend, so there was no care or attention there. So there were like 3 deficits to try and fill.
Yeah.
And that I think is partly why I turned to doing all of these things kind of for myself. I'm like, well, I need to start generating some of this care for myself because I'm not getting it in these 3 places that I have in the past.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is like, I mean...
Cue crying in the bathtub.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a form of self-care, I guess. Yeah. Which I guess is kind of what this brings up, like, how do you manage those deficits? And maybe it brings up an anxiety for me that like always kind of shows up whenever I'm in a position of like struggling or needing care, like the idea that there's sort of this like tally and that I'm like wearing down like your patience or whoever's patience, and like I'm asking them for more than they can give, or that they're going to want to give, and that they're going to stop at some point.
May I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
That makes so much sense to me.
Yeah.
Like I have that feeling too. And I think that's where I often am in conflict with myself. Like I want care, but I don't want to let anybody give it to me because it's scarce and maybe I'll need it more some other time. How does it change that feeling for you? And I'm talking about between us specifically. How does it change that feeling for you if it's not like I'm going to run out of care, but I am going to need more care in return? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Does it change the way you feel about that, or that sense that like it's going to run out, or you don't want to engage in it because that might mean that I'll need care that you won't be able to give or wouldn't want to?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever thought about it in that kind of comparative way. I think I tend to think about it or feel it into it more in the like just the sort of quantity that is available for me. But now that you say it, yeah, I'm sure there's like some of that going on as well. Yeah, is that what it feels like to you?
I was just this is a new paradigm that I'm considering, just like how that scarcity of care is a really pervasive thought and it worms its way into so much. Instead of seeing that as just like a deepening of intimacy, you're just like, oh, I'm going to be in the hole to somebody, or they're going to want more from
Yeah.
me in return, instead of being like, oh, wow, my partner has just shown an incredible amount of care to me. That's like a deepening of intimacy. I look forward to when I get to return that back to them,
Yeah.
because this is like going to make our relationship more profound.
Yeah. No, I think I have. You're right. I have like felt that. Yeah. And more in that direction of like, I don't know if like it's an opportunity, but certainly like wanting to be able to reciprocate. So like, in some ways I was happy that we were both having a hard time at the same time or similar times, because it meant that, there were opportunities to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like maybe I even heard you say that you felt the same thing. Yeah. There's also the sense that, however, that if you're in like a primary partnership, like for us, there's all these other stresses. And so there is a limited amount of like, just kind of like capacity time wise, even just to like talk about feelings
And process
and stuff like that before like the demands of life come in. So that's definitely
This gets me thinking about the polyphobia element of this.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to talk about other people helping you and not being
Yes.
able to?
So one of the typical things that we would say, like, Jessica, I think you introduced me to the concept of the concentric circles of care, and I'm pretty sure that we've talked about that on the show before. Would you introduce us to it again?
I mean, I think it's the idea that when somebody is experiencing something hard, or a traumatic event or a family health crisis or a breakup, perhaps, they're kind of in the center of this circle. And that, then there's an immediate circle outwards that they can look to for support, and that can be supporting them. But that circle should then, rather than looking back inwards to the person who's in an acute trauma or difficult situation, they should look outwards to the next concentric circle of care.
Yeah. So if you were to picture this maybe in like a typical community emergency situation, you have somebody in the hospital, and that person would be at the center of the circle. And then the circle right beyond that maybe is the person who is at the hospital all the time with that person. And then the person beyond that maybe goes and checks in on that person twice a day. And then that person...
Or maybe they make them a lunch every day before they go to the hospital, just like as an example.
Oh, yeah. Did somebody do that for you? Yeah.
Maybe they handle all the phone calls from friends and family, so that person in the middle doesn't have to.
Yeah. It's interesting. You're referencing when your husband Curtis had a stroke and some of the things that I and our community did to help you during that time. And I'm glad that came up, because when we were talking about like care and care deficit, did you feel like you were going to be in debt to me or to us because of that?
Yeah, no. But it was interesting because, I mean, it's like the most dramatic thing that I've been through in my life. And I think anything less dramatic and I would have worried about it, but it was total, like everything was blown. And I was just like,
Right.
it took months later. I was like, oh my God, I have not prepared a meal for myself in 3 months. And it has not crossed my mind to do that. And I am still alive, and I don't think I've lost any weight. So someone's been feeding me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But it took something that extreme, I think, to feel okay asking for help and
Yeah.
accepting and receiving it.
yeah,
You know?
that's really interesting.
A minute ago, I wrote down curated vulnerability. And all of this is making me think about just like, there are people that you will be like sort of seek genuine, like extremely like vulnerable care from, like that is maybe not very self-conscious, like you're talking about. And then there are people who you will like, or for me at least, I will like sometimes, kind of like be vulnerable and ask for help and support from somebody who's like kind of like further away that I'm not as close to, that like I'm kind of presenting them with a story, and like maybe the solution is kind of right there, and I'm kind of like downplaying like the intensity of it for me, in so that it's like, because I don't necessarily like feel perfectly like safe to like ask them for that. I don't know if this is like good or bad or a thing I want to judge, but it just maybe kind of like speaks to this idea of like there being those circles of care. But like when you turn outside, how much are you letting yourself actually get it?
Yeah, right. And it's very vulnerable. The times when I have like asked really vulnerably for care that I felt that I really needed and got to know were really hard. And it does happen. And it requires a lot of resilience and I think like varied types of support to be able to move through that. So I understand why it's hard. The point I was going to make about polyphobia is that those concentric circles of care in a situation where there's struggles inside a polyamorous relationship can be thin because monogamous people
Not naming any names, you know who you are.
are really fucking judgmental of polyamory. And their inclination to judge those relationships really harshly, to like basically not follow any of the rules that we just described, and to offer solutions and sort of to blame the person who's struggling and to cast doubt
Right.
across the entire thing.
And just make it
really
be, this
high.
is all because of polyamory.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Or
I
this
mean,
person's like shouldn't have ever been in this relationship to begin with, or you've like, assuming that the polyamory is already an exploitive situation.
yeah, I experienced this with my like first therapist that I had when we were poly, who was like not experienced with it, and like she was a lovely lady and helped me a lot, but like she had this sort of like wall where she couldn't really get past the like just like up and down vote zero sum game of being poly in general. So anytime any problem came up in that realm, she would be like, yeah, maybe you don't want to be polyamorous. And like, that's not
Right.
what we're talking about here.
Was this the therapist? I always think about this whenever I do the laundry. Was this the therapist who was like, I mean, I know it's hard. Like your wife, you come home and there she is. She's just doing laundry and it's not very sexy. And then you came home and you're like, do you know how fucking sexy I would think it was if you actually ever did any goddamn laundry?
Yes. Yeah. Same lady.
That lady did not get you.
She was of an older generation. I spent the whole rest of my time with her just virtue signaling about all the housework.
All the laundry you do.
Exactly.
Yeah. But this is real. And this is something that I struggle with on the regular. Because our community is like really mixed polyamorous and monogamous.
Yeah.
I often like don't want to tell people where you are when you're on a date because I'm going to get some sort of weird reaction. I like don't share relationship problems that you and I are having with monogamous people ever because the story, it just feeds into an existing story that feels like they already have about us being secretly unhappy. I think that there's a this sounds cynical, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think that there are a lot of people out there that on some level sort of are gunning for poly queer relationships to fail. because it's against the norm. It challenges the norm. It often challenges the relationships that they're in. And seeing that that isn't working in some way is something that is actually validating for them. And so I don't feel safe talking to them about any of those struggles. And I think about my monogamous friends and I haven't talked to them about a single relationship that I've been in, including ours, in probably 5 years.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
like
I mean,
years.
yeah. I mean, not to generalize, but I don't feel like monogamous people talk about struggles that they're having in
Are you
relationships in
fucking
general.
kidding me? I feel like
think they
that's
do?
all I'm ever hearing
Oh,
about.
really?
I mean, maybe that's because of my job.
Yeah.
But I literally have friends that are like, I need you to call me right now
Well-
so that I can bitch about my partner.
Yeah. I guess you're right. Yeah. I guess I just feel like
And I'm not just like, well, you shouldn't be monogamous.
maybe you should try
Maybe
fucking
you
somebody
should
else.
consider not being monogamous.
Yeah. The problem is and I mean, oftentimes I probably would think the problem was
Right.
not that I
It
thought
would
they
not. It
think
would
they
not
could
make their
handle it.
problems go away because
No,
the
it
problems that
wouldn't,
you have
but-
in a relationship don't go away when you change the relationships.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's both. Sometimes it would be. Yeah. Anyway.
So I think that is something you have to talk about here. Like your partner is going through a breakup. You want to support them in these concentric circles of care, but you need some additional support too. Who do you go to for that additional support? Who feels like a safe person to talk to that's not going to indict you and your relationship style and your partner as part of the process? And I think that can be hard.
Yeah. Well, should we come back to the kind of, I mean, we've touched on it somewhat, but like the personal feelings that we had when we were trying to provide that kind of care for each
Yeah,
other?
definitely. We weren't going to solve that problem about people being assholes about non-monogamy, huh? You're like, well, moving on. People suck.
No, I
Well,
guess not. I mean, what is going to solve that problem? Like being
It
friends
would
with
be
other
me
poly
actually
people?
talking to them about how it makes me feel.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, you have
You-
to be
you-
vulnerable and talk about your feelings.
I mean, speaking
describe
of
what
that
kind of care you
curated
need.
vulnerability thing, yeah, when I talk to monogamous people about my relationships in general, I make it all sound a lot like better and smoother
Same.
than it is because I just feel like they're not going to have any good like advice or support probably for me. They're going to do that thing of like thinking about the whole, not being able to get past the whole system, which is interesting because I feel like if you were queer and you were talking to a straight person, if I was like, talking to my straight friend about my gay relationship, it's not like they would be so distracted by the gayness of it that they wouldn't be able to.
I think you
like-
might be giving people too much credit.
Okay.
I think that people other a lot in this department, and it's never in overt bigotry. They're not
Right.
just like polyamory is disgusting. You're a degenerate monster,
Mm.
But they'll say stuff like, "Are you sure you want to be polyamorous, or is it really Alex who wants to be polyamorous?" Right?
Yeah.
And similarly, I think with queerness, I think about, this is personal, but I'll say it because I'm in a mood. When I tried to come out when I was younger to a couple of people, and especially adults in my life, they would literally say, to have queer relations, they wouldn't have used that word. They would say, to be gay would be too hard. It would be too hard on you. Right? So it's not overt bigotry, but it's just like this constant subtle messaging that to be different in the realm of sex, sexuality, gender, romance, and love won't ever work out, and that it's just kind of inherently going to be tragic and bad.
Yeah, I hear you, but I think it is even harder for a person who's like monogamously married to like sit with the idea of the problems of a polyamorous like relationship because they feel more directly like implicated, like you were saying before. It's like not quite the same that like my straight friend that I'm talking to just can't imagine like that he feels like if I'm trying to work out things in my queer relationship, then that's suggesting that they should be queer too.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same as if I'm saying,
Yeah. I'm just saying that like it might show up differently, but people's the gravitational pull towards a norm is really strong in this realm.
Yeah.
And people don't check themselves.
Well, and like being poly does like point to a lot of, it does create more problems, right? Like not like a greater volume of emotional distress maybe than a monogamous relationship, but
a more varied,
more diverse,
quantity,
varied, interesting problems that, you know, you can't imagine would just go away if you just, I mean, it's kind of the same as somebody asking somebody for advice in a relationship and being like, you should just break up with that person, right? It is tempting to just like make it go away.
So, but I did want to just say I'm recognizing in real time that the way to solve that problem is to talk to people I trust about how it makes me feel when they respond that way.
Have you done that yet?
Nope.
Yeah, me either.
Just hope they listen to the podcast.
They don't.
They don't.
It makes them uncomfortable.
And people might not even realize that they're doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, the script, the like tendency towards monogamy as norm is so strong and so powerful that like if people haven't spent any time, you know, deconstructing that for themselves, then yeah, it's just like the truth.
Yeah.
The truth is that monogamy is correct and the only way to be, and you're doing something weird. You're dismantling too much, Sarah. Why are you dismantling all the time?
So much dismantling. Too much dismantling. What I was going to say back to, you know, tips for how to talk to someone who's struggling, your partner when they're struggling. I really do think asking questions about how someone feels, you don't have to understand and you don't have to agree, but you can ask questions about how the other person feels. And that is enough. That indicates care and it indicates presence and it indicates that like they don't have to fucking fight for their lives to just like get you to be kind to them, you know?
Well, and dare I say that another sort of like impetus or push towards solutioning all the time. Can we blame capitalism for that too?
Please.
Like the fact that we just feel like we don't have time for these messy emotions and feelings. We can't just like sit around and talk about them and process them. We have to figure out how to solve this.
Got to keep the trains
so
running.
that we can get up and go to work in the morning. Yeah.
Right. And at the end of your life, you're going to be like, too bad I spent all that time processing my feelings and thinking about love when I could have gotten to that appointment on time.
Right. Could have been making widgets.
Okay. So you wanted to talk about what it actually felt like.
I mean, do I want to? No, but it's in the script, and I guess I put it there.
Let's do it.
So, yeah, and I want to make sure we leave some time also to just talk about like some of the actual support stuff, because that's where we started, was like, you know, how to support your partner.
Yeah, and we've done like the active listening, you know, having boundaries, the concentric circles of care, not providing solutions, asking questions. Yeah.
Okay. And maybe being patient and accepting that this is like something that you've signed on for in like being in this kind of relationship.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's not all sunshine and roses and getting to have relationships with lots of people. It's sometimes supporting your partner in their relationships with other people. Anyway, how was it for you when I was struggling and asking you for a lot of support?
Part of it I really liked because you wanted to talk to me about feelings. Like, you know, in our relationship, there is a little bit of I have an endless appetite for that, and most other people don't. And so it was kind of nice because you wanted to talk about having anxiety, and you wanted to talk about feeling confused, and you wanted to talk about love, and you wanted to talk about attachment, and you asked me questions about that. You wanted to talk about your parents. And those are all things that I love talking to you about. And so I really liked it.
So you were happy that I was suffering, is what you're saying.
I was happy that you wanted to explore those things, and you were taking extra time to explore them, and you wanted to understand yourself and the emotional experience that you were having. Yeah. I thought that was really cool, and I was really here for it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I felt that. I think for me, it was like also an experience. Part of the turmoil was probably the experience of transitioning into sort of a new like phase of life or relationship to self, where I was more in touch with that stuff. So I was feeling the things really hard, and so I was interested in them because I was like, how do I make this go away?
Well, and it also sparked a couple of I thought, real moments of closeness and repair between us when you identified that you were feeling things that I had tried to describe to you in the past and that you had dismissed or thought were unavailable to you. And that now you were going back and imagining that this is what I was experiencing and trying to communicate to you. And I thought that did create like more closeness and understanding between us.
Yeah, still true. What about what was hard about it?
I think what I already said, that it just was like a lot of what we talked about was another person. And that just amount of like attention and like volume of attention towards that relationship just started to kind of wear on me a little bit because it kicked up that feeling where I'm like, but I'm being such a good partner and I'm right here. And like, why are we just talking about this? And like, when do we get to me kind of, you know, or when have I like earned some care back? And I think like that's what started being difficult for me and probably where I started feeling where my boundaries should be in retrospect.
Do you feel like you did a good job of like asserting those boundaries?
No.
Cool. I don't remember you doing it very much either.
No. No, I don't think I did. I mean, also, it's like I want to know what's going on in your life and what you're experiencing, and I love you. And
Thank you.
you're welcome. And so it's hard to be like, well, I don't want to know about any more of that, you know?
Yeah.
Like, this is 90% of your internal life right now, and I'm done with it. Felt like a hard boundary, and I didn't always know, you know, I was like, well, then how are we going to be together? You know, like, this is totally preoccupying to you. So it was really only maybe towards the end that I started understanding, like, I think you started hearing me be like, I think that's enough of hearing about this person for a while. Or I think maybe I've had enough of hearing about this for a little while, or, you know, I started saying stuff like that, or asking like, can we talk about this thing that's happening in my life now? And sometimes you would say no, which is one of the interesting experiences that I had where you're like, no, I'm actually too distressed to talk about that.
Right.
Like I'm remembering that I was really struggling at work with something. And I was like, can we talk about this?
Yeah.
And you were like, that material is too upsetting to me because it relates to this material. So no, you know?
Yeah.
And that, I think that was a real turning point for me where I was like, I need to go find some other people to talk to.
Right.
And I started like sending voice memos to a couple of my friends, and I talked to Jessica about it, and I started going to therapy once a week.
Wow. That sounds hard.
Yeah, it was hard. Thank you for asking. What was it like for you when I've struggled and you've needed to support me?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm sort of thinking specifically about like that period where you were like kind of trying to figure out if and how to stay in the relationship that you were in, and that kind of like came to a head a few times, and you're sort of like I feel like I should end this relationship. I feel like the way that you brought it to me was in those pre-breakup moments kind of curated. And I can relate to that because I do think that there is like, if you're in a relationship and you're seeking support and you're not sure, or you still have that feeling that you can make it work, then I've certainly like had the experience in the past when I was in that position of like really not wanting to like share everything because you don't want the person to tell you, like, it's almost like you don't want to be accountable to.
Also, if you say it out loud, you know how bad it sounds.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe holding it inside. Yeah. So yeah.
Nobody's gonna be like, no, it sounds like it could be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but I guess I did. Maybe you held some of the stuff back, and I guess it has been, you know, more details have been revealed post breakup that maybe were things that you sort of suppressed because of that instinct. But, you know, generally speaking, I think to a point, like I was saying before, it's like easier for me sometimes to like to hear about those struggles because it lets me feel like, you know, I'm like the easy partner. I'm sort of like, Good. Edit that out, please.
No, I'm just teasing. I really am teasing. I couldn't help myself.
Okay, restated, it makes me feel like I'm gaining back some of the ground that I have lost in being too needy and vulnerable. What about that? It's not actually how I felt. Okay. More the first one, but it could be either. And maybe a more positive framing of that is that it is like gratifying to be able to be there and provide care and support, and so I like appreciated the opportunity to do that, especially in contrast with times that I needed it. There's also, we haven't really brought up the like too much the like Schadenfreude thing, of just like, that sense of, I guess I mentioned it before, but that sense of like competition with your metas and like jealousy, and that like when you hear that there's a struggle over there, like there could be some at least momentary feeling of like relief, or like that it feels like welcome information. I might be outing myself as a bad person here, but
no, I think a lot of things can be true at once. I always like to remind people that there are different parts of us that are talking, and it's like there can be the part of us that feels that, and there can be many other parts of us that feel the exact opposite.
Yeah. And to that point, there's sort of this mix of that perhaps, but also like, okay, yeah, that feeling also like, okay, maybe this person is like less of a sort of threat because I can hear the way that you're struggling, and maybe that's making you like divest from it emotionally a little bit, which like brings you closer to me. But on the other hand, like at some point, maybe it does turn into like, oh, I'm hearing things about your other partner that are distressing you so much that it like is a threat, and it's like a threat to your emotional well-being, or a threat to like just kind of the stability of the relationship constellation that we have. And like yeah, to your point, those things can kind of like all be in contrast.
What I hear you saying is part of you is like, oh, I like to be the good partner, not the problem partner, but also don't really want you to break up with someone because we have whatever sort of balance or stasis we have in this particular constellation, and that will throw things into uncertainty.
Yeah, and I think in this scenario, I did that. I mean, I was really struggling with those times that you were like, I think I should, end this relationship, of just trying not to like really have an opinion. Or like
you didn't
tell you what to do.
You also didn't.
And I think I kind of regret that in retrospect in some ways, because like once you ultimately did, then
I think you did the right thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I think so too. I think that
I think you did a good job.
I think you and I landed at the place where that you should end the relationship at kind of the same time, which I guess makes sense because all of the information I had about it was coming through you. So clearly like colored by your opinions. But when you did decide to end the relationship, I was like, this is correct. But I didn't really feel that necessarily beforehand.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I was being... This gets to like, how much do you share with your partners about other partners? And like, I am pretty, I think I'm pretty boundaried in that way as compared to other people. Like, I will fucking cut loose with Jessica. Jessica over here, there's not a detail that she doesn't know, right? But with my other partners...
that's the paywalled content.
I tend to be pretty careful because of the privacy of the other person, and I think because of my profession as a therapist and my previous profession, current as a journalist, the ideas of like being able to be kind of boundaried and hold dual relationships with privacy and care is something that matters to me. And I don't talk in explicit detail about what goes on in my romantic sexual relationships with other romantic sexual partners.
Sure.
So I think that's like, as things were, I was struggling in that relationship, I was struggling with how much to talk about, because as a general rule, I don't share all of the details, and so then I wasn't sure like what details are appropriate to share and when.
But it was not because you didn't want to burden me with the emotional distress, but because you was it that, or was it something else?
It was both things.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was like privacy of my former partner, and I think it was also not wanting to burden you with a bunch of material that you might not want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, before I knew what to make of it
Yeah.
or ever.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and in terms of how that all felt, I mean, there were certainly like things that came up that were kind of hard to hear, including after the fact. But like generally speaking, I felt like pretty good about being able to like support you and like listen to things that you were struggling with in the relationship. And then yeah, like you were kind of saying, at some point, at points I maybe got to a place where I was like, okay, are we talking about this again? Like, and maybe a little bit of like impatience and wanting to be like focused on, maybe wanting to be focused on like things that I had going on or things between us, but also just like to have an ambient feeling of like positivity, which I think is something that can like come up in these kinds of like challenges. Like if your partner is struggling with another partner and they're just like down or they're anxious or they're preoccupied or whatever, it's like, what do you want? I just want you and me to like be happy and having a good time.
And that's what I was talking about. The system is impacted.
Yeah.
That's why what happens in another relationship also happens to you.
Yeah.
Because like you can't just cultivate that ambient sense of happiness because one person is profoundly unhappy.
Yeah.
And so that's frustrating. And it's hard to have like that emotional hygiene that Gemini is encouraging us to have because of course you're going to be resentful. You're going to be resentful of the metamor. You're going to be resentful of the breakup. You're going to be resentful of your partner because you're going to be like, at some point, I want a nice fucking Sunday back.
Yeah.
And is that ever going to happen again?
Yeah.
And it's perfectly natural to feel that way.
Yeah, and maybe this is like pointed towards people early in opening relationships or being poly is like none of these problems are going to exist at the very front end. I guess other problems are going to exist, but then once you get into deep into years long relationships, then you kind of start to realize that like the periods where everybody is at peace and happy in all of their relationships and the constellation is like stable and supportive are like fleeting, and you're never going to arrive there. There's always going to be this kind of change, and so that's what you're buying into.
Yeah, and I would say like a plug for polyamory in this respect. I was on a date last night with someone who was talking about the idea of change and suffering from a Buddhist perspective because I love to date Buddhists and people.
I love to date therapists. You love to date Buddhists.
And they were talking about how that is always true of life, and polyamory is one way to really surface it and be directly engaged with it all the time.
That's the polyamory slogan. Surface your suffering.
Surface your suffering. Yes, exactly.
Directly engaged with suffering and
change.
Okay.
That is like the nature of life, right? And your orientation towards suffering and change is how you experience your life. And so polyamory is about a lot of turmoil and change. And that's a lot of practice around how do you experience your life. Yeah. I could go on.
Yeah, we clearly have a lot to say about this, which is interesting. No, not really interesting or surprising. But before we go, I did want to touch on this other piece of like when there's a relationship struggle and you are directly implicated in it. And the like triangulation question.
Oh, we're going to talk about that instead of politics?
Oh, well, we can talk about both.
Okay, quickly. You do yours and I'll do mine.
Okay. Mine is just, and I think mine is actually yours too. But like, there are potential scenarios where the hinge partner is, telling like the struggle that they're having is about you, right? You're telling me like,
yeah.
you know,
Like your metamor hates you.
Yeah, I'm having problems
Yeah.
in this relationship over here because they don't like you.
Yeah.
Or because of something that you did, or
Been
because
there.
our relationship is creating
Yeah.
like a problem for them. And I guess I just wanted to bring that up because like you can't really be expected to like do any of this stuff we're talking about in that kind of
Nope.
situation.
No, you're
because yeah, you're fucked. So what is the answer to that? Like, is it because I don't think the answer is just to never do it.
Dude, I
right?
do not know.
To like completely withhold that information. Like if it's real, like one thing is to concoct it and triangulate people and be like, play them off of each other. But another thing is just like, you know, if your two partners are like jealous of each other, or something like that, like
I do have some thoughts about this. Like a little bit, I just want to say, I think this is the kind of problem that actually cannot be solved. I think this
Cool.
is the kind of
my favorite kind, intractable.
Well, hear me out. Yeah. Like this is going to happen. You're going to have partners who don't like each other. You might have partners where there's animosity, and you can't force that to change, right? I think some things that you can, and that's going to be hard. Like those conditions of a relationship are just going to be hard.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to engage with that fact. But a few things to check. One, how are you contributing to the jealousy or animosity, right? And when I have never been in a relationship where my metamors disliked each other. Or sorry, let me put it another way. I have never been in a relationship where my two partners disliked each other.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Yeah. No.
But I have been in a relationship where
You were disliked.
I was disliked by a metamor.
Yeah.
And actually it has only happened when they didn't meet me.
Yeah.
So that I think is
I wanted
really
this feeling, not one of mine.
no, but they had never met me.
Yeah.
And so that indicates to me that the hinge, my partner is mismanaging something.
Yeah.
And that there is something going on in the way they're talking to us about each other or about our relationships that could change and improve the situation, even if you can't solve for it. So that's like one thing that I would bring up.
Yeah.
I
don't think it's always that though.
Yeah, tell me.
Oh, I just think like, you know, I think those kinds of struggles can exist. Well, I think there are always things that you can do as the like hinge partner to like probably improve the relationship, and a lot of those probably have to do with like kind of being self-critical about like how am I presenting the information to these people, and you know, how am I creating and holding the boundaries between them, and maybe how am I like carefully like trying to like integrate them, to your point, more with each other, to have more like connection and like sense of reciprocal care of the unit. But failing to do that is not like
Always your failure.
Yeah. Or it's like a hard thing to fucking do.
Yeah,
you know?
Is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So I think it is just really hard conditions of a relationship. And it probably speaks to there being some insecurity in the relationship, maybe all of them, that really needs to be addressed for there to be more health.
Yeah. When this happened for me as like one of the partners, I think my conclusion ultimately was like, yeah, the ways that it was handled like by the hinge partner weren't perfect, and there were some mistakes there, but also like just dynamically, like if you have more than one relationship that is like changing a lot at the same time, or even just one that's changing a lot at the same time with high stakes, like it's going to be a challenge, and your partners are going to struggle with it. And you got to be ready for that.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. You wanted to talk about politics.
Yeah, I feel like I can't talk about anything today, and I know that this will come out some weeks from now.
When everything is peaceful across the land.
I'm sure we'll be in a different situation.
I don't feel like talking about anything today without mentioning what's happening in the political realm.
With ICE.
With ICE specifically. What's happening in Minnesota, with Renee Nicole Good's execution, with the revelation for many of us that hundreds of people have died at the hands of ICE, been murdered by ICE or in ICE detention, the just rampant abuses of power that are happening in cities across the country right now. It's really impactful and upsetting. And if you are a systems thinker like me, things happening in the larger system that you are a part of is you're experiencing it individually as well. And you may not be in a city where ICE is rampaging through the streets yet, but you are still emotionally, spiritually, morally impacted by this. And partly I just wanted to say that as like a kind of service announcement as a therapist that you're allowed to be. It's okay. It's good. You have to be. You have to let yourself be impacted by what's happening politically. And I think there can be a lot of pressure, and this segues into some of the content of today, to move past it quickly, to have some sort of like quick intellectual quippy thing to say about it, to just say, well, like talking about it won't help, to say like looking at the social media won't do anything, so I'm moving on.
Yeah.
But
Speaking of solutions not being
solutions, not presence. We don't have a solution for how to stop ICE, but you know what? DM me and ask me, and we could brainstorm some. For real. But that doesn't mean that we aren't emotionally engaged with what's happening and there aren't consequences, and that we don't have a responsibility to ourselves and each other to hold some of those feelings, to hold them together. And I guess I mentioned this because a lot of my clients last week were really desperate to express anger and grief and fear, and they felt like they couldn't necessarily in their communities or at work or in their relationships. And they used my office to do that.
Yeah, I wonder about the in their relationships part. I mean,
Yeah, and so to get to that, I really need my partners to be able to hold some of my feelings about what is happening politically when it happens. And that can also be a struggle for people because I have really, really strong feelings about what's happening. Something like Good's execution, watching that on video, you know, these points of resonance are not all that matters, but the fact that she was a queer mother, writer, and activist who was shot in the face and then called a misogynist epithet impacts me in a major way. And I want to talk to the people that I am intimate with about it. And it can be really hard to ask people to hold space for that. And I get no a lot.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. Because I was just going to comment that I feel like sometimes you'll like apologize to me for wanting to talk about politics. And I feel like my response is invariably, what? Like, don't, you know, like I want, and another friend apologized to me the other day when we were on a walk for talking about politics. And I was kind of like, what? That's what I brought it up. Like, it's the only thing that I want to be talking about too. But that's interesting that maybe this is a blind spot of mind that
I mean, it's not always the only thing I want to be talking about. Like, I definitely get fatigued with it, and like the times that the times that you're being impacted by it and the times that I'm being impacted by it are not always the same. And like sometimes I'm fucking tired of being impacted by it, and like, or like, you know, if there's something that's like a cloud and you don't find yourself under that cloud for a moment, then, you know, having somebody else remind you about that cloud is like tough.
It's tough. I'm thinking about the concentric circles of care here because
maybe there's people in other countries or other planets where this
every single fucking part of the circle is impacted. So all of our capacity is drawn down, and you can really feel that. And then I think about how, given who is being targeted at any given moment, you know, demographically, do we have more of a responsibility to hold each other in those concentric circles of care differently? I find myself really hungry to talk to men about my experience of Good's murder because of the misogyny, the politicized misogyny on display, and the, you know, really insistent expression of misogyny in current day authoritarianism and fascism. And in part, I want to do that because I want them to distinguish themselves from that misogyny by giving a shit that this has happened, and that her life wasn't incidental or didn't matter, which I know is like controversial framing. But that, I think, is an example of where this stuff can get tricky. And yeah, if you're a man out there that wants me to yell at you about this, again, DM me.
it is maybe worth noting that like the word that you've been using this whole time is like feelings about politics, and like you're not talking about opinions. You're
No.
talking about feelings and like emotions. And
No.
like, I think sometimes we kind of like treat this as like, well, what's your take? Like you were saying up top, like, let's have a take and then move on. But this is like stuff that has become distressing
Right.
to a degree that it is the realm of like strong emotions.
And I'll be honest, like it will impact me and distress me atmospherically, certainly as much as a breakup.
Yeah.
Like I am as acutely upset at moments.
Yeah. I don't think it impacts me quite that much. And maybe that's like to your point about like kind of positions of privilege or how subject you are to the things. Yeah. I just can't wait to vote next year.
Oh my God. Don't hold your breath.
Yeah. No kidding. So you think you're going to be able to vote.
Cute.
I won't disavow you of that today.
Well, thank you so much for the conversation.
Yes.
And it was like really valuable to dig into some of this stuff. And
Yeah, likewise.
I'm looking forward to using it as a platform to be more intentional in the ways that we take care of each other in the future when we're struggling.
Not that we'll ever struggle like that again.
No, I'm not putting it.
Now you've got your solutions are all laid out, right?
Yeah.
They're here in the podcast.
Thank you both. I really appreciated this conversation too. And it don't feel good, but it's what I needed. Thank you.
Well, and thank you all for listening to Mistakes Were Made. As always, find us on Instagram at MistakesCast and email us with your show ideas and feedback at mistakescast@gmail.com. And look in the show notes on your listening platform to find out more about the Intentional Non-Monogamy Workshop in Seattle on March 21st.
Yeah. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.